Seattle rain has its own rhythm, a slow, relentless tapping that sounds almost like a heartbeat echoing against metal roofs. That afternoon, standing in the dim warehouse, I listened to it blend with the hum of machines and the soft squeak of rubber soles on concrete. The air smelled of oil, damp cardboard, and old exhaust. It was the kind of ordinary day that never warns you it's about to change everything. My name is Alexander Thorne, though everyone at work just calls me Alex. I'm 38 and a warehouse supervisor, a job filled with clipboards, safety checks, and endless repetition. After my wife Sophia died a year ago, that repetition became my refuge. Work was predictable, unlike life. Her passing in a car accident left a silence that no routine could fill. Only my daughters, Olivia, 7, and Mia, 5, gave my world any color. They had Sophia's auburn curls and the same way of laughing with their whole hearts. I lived for them, but inside, I felt hollow, as if I'd been walking through fog since the day I buried her. That grey November afternoon, I was finishing inventory when a shrill ringtone shattered the quiet. It wasn't my phone, mine was on the desk beside me. The sound came from a black leather backpack resting on a nearby chair. I recognized it instantly. It belonged to my younger brother, Marcus, and I couldn't have been more different. He was the charming one, well-dressed, confident, always knowing what to say. He sold life insurance policies and talked about investments and potential, words I never cared much for. Even when we were kids, he had the attention of our parents, teachers, everyone. I didn't envy him, not exactly. I just never understood how easily the world seemed to bend toward him. He'd dropped by earlier that day, saying he needed to borrow a few tools, and then hurried off for a meeting. Now, apparently, he'd left behind his phone. Shaking my head, I walked over and unzipped the bag to silence it before the noise drove me mad, but the second I pulled the phone out, my breath caught in my throat, the screen lit up with an incoming call. The name read, Ilara. Next to it was a photo, Sophia's face. Her soft hazel eyes, the gentle curve of her lips, the faint scar near her collarbone from when she fell off her bike as a kid. Every detail was there. For a moment, everything around me dissolved, the hum of forklifts, the smell of rain, the cold air. I could only stare. Sophia was gone. I had stood beside her casket, my hands gripping our daughter's shoulders as the earth swallowed her coffin. And yet here she was, smiling at me from Marcus's phone. The ringing wouldn't stop, so I answered, my hand trembling, "Hello." A woman's voice came through, familiar but wrong. "Marcus. Finally. I've been calling you all morning." It wasn't Sophia. The tone was lighter, silkier. Then realization dawned. It was Isabella, Sophia's identical twin sister. She and Marcus had been dating for months. I tried to steady my voice. "It's Alex," I said. "Marcus left his phone here." She laughed softly. "Of course he did. He's hopeless with his things. Tell him to call me later, okay?" When the call ended, I just stood there, staring at the photo again. Twins or not, I'd spent 10 years with Sophia. I knew the way her freckles dusted her left cheek, the tiny dimple that appeared when she smiled. This picture wasn't Isabella. It was Sophia. My heart pounded as I swiped through the screen. Marcus's password had always been the same, his birthday, July 22, 1991. I entered it, and the phone unlocked. What I found inside ripped through me like a storm. The photo gallery opened to dozens of images. Sophia in her favorite blue sundress, laughing with Marcus at a cafe. Sophia resting her head on his shoulder. Sophia and Marcus on the pier, her hand tangled in his. My lungs felt tight, my mind refusing to believe what my eyes showed me. Every memory I had with her, every kiss, every whispered promise, suddenly felt like a lie. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. I quickly locked the screen, just as Marcus appeared in the doorway, flashing his usual grin. "Hey, bro," he said casually. Forgot my phone. You always save me. I handed it to him, my voice low. Marcus, why do you have pictures of Sophia on here? His smile faltered for just a heartbeat before returning. That's Isabella, man. They're twins. You're seeing things. I stepped closer. Don't lie to me. I saw the dates. Those pictures were taken before she died. Before the accident. He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. You're grieving, Alex. Sometimes your mind plays tricks on you. You've got to move on. Then, with forced calm, he snatched the phone and walked out. For a long moment, I stood there motionless. The sound of rain grew louder, like applause from an unseen audience mocking me. I felt sick. Betrayal has a taste, bitter and metallic, and that night, I tasted it with every breath. When I got home, Olivia and Mia were building pillow forts in the living room, giggling as the lamps cast warm shadows across their faces. I smiled for them, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending I was still the same father they knew. But inside, my world was unraveling. After tucking them in, I climbed to the attic, Sophia's old workspace. Dust covered the desk, her books, her half-finished sketches. I could still smell her perfume, faint, like a ghost refusing to leave. Sitting at her laptop, I typed our anniversary date as the password. The screen lit up. Buried inside a folder named Projects, I found hundreds of emails between her and Marcus. Words of affection, plans for secret meetings, pictures of them together. Every line felt like another wound opening. There was no denying it now. They had betrayed me long before she died. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, tears blurring my vision. Every family dinner, every inside joke between them, every time Marcus had helped when Sophia was sick, it all replayed in a cruel montage of deceit. And the days that followed, I barely slept. I went through the motions at work, my body on autopilot while my mind spun. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Isabella and asked to meet. We met at a quiet diner, the windows fogged with rain. When I showed her the photos, her face went pale. That's Sophia, she whispered. Marcus told me she couldn't stand him. He lied to me. Her eyes filled with tears as she confessed that Marcus sometimes slipped up, calling her by Sophia's name, saying things only Sophia would have known. We sat there for a long time, two broken people piecing together a puzzle neither of us wanted to solve. When I finally drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something even darker lurked beneath the surface. The next day, searching through Sophia's old files again, I found it, a life insurance document worth $2.5 million. The policy listed Sophia Thorne as the beneficiary, and Marcus Thorne as the broker. My heart pounded in disbelief. The signature above my printed name, Alex Thorne, wasn't mine. I called an old friend, Ethan, who worked at Marcus's firm. His voice was hesitant when he confirmed it. The policy had been filed only weeks before Sophia's accident. The truth hit me like ice water. Sophia and Marcus had planned something far worse than betrayal. They had intended to fake my death for money, and the accident that claimed her life had likely been the plan gone wrong. I sat there in the dark, staring at the papers, feeling the weight of everything collapse. My brother had betrayed me. My wife had deceived me. My parents had always chosen him. And now, he was with Isabella, Sophia's mirror image, probably repeating the same scheme. For the first time in a year, my grief turned into purpose. I wasn't going to hide from the truth anymore. I would uncover everything, and I would stop Marcus before he destroyed another life. After that night, I disappeared. No phone calls. No explanations. Just me, a newborn, and a car that barely ran. I drove through the dark until the lights of Brentwood faded in the rearview mirror, replaced by the quiet hum of Knoxville streets. I found a small one-bedroom house on the city's edge, nothing fancy, but safe. That became our home. I named him Aiden, meaning little fire. It suited him perfectly. He was small, fragile, yet alive with quiet strength. The first nights were the hardest. I knew nothing about caring for an infant. I burned bottles, fumbled with diapers, and learned how to sleep in 15-minute intervals. My video equipment gathered dust in the corner while I learned how to be both father and mother, but every time Aiden smiled, the exhaustion vanished. His laughter filled the silence I'd lived with all my life. It was as if Sophia's soul had returned through him. The same bright eyes, the same spark of curiosity. Whenever he reached for my face, I felt a promise forming, a promise to raise him in love, not fear. I built my freelance work back up slowly, filming weddings, small documentaries, and city events. Every extra dollar went into savings for Aiden's future. We didn't have luxury, but we had peace. In the evenings, I'd take him for walks through a nearby park, pointing at the stars. "Your mom used to dream about seeing the world," I'd whisper. "And one day, you will too." Years passed, and Aiden grew into a curious, artistic boy. By the time he turned 10, he was sculpting with the same natural grace Sophia once had. While other kids played video games, he sat by the window molding tiny figures from clay. His hands moved with purpose, his eyes bright with imagination. One day, he handed me a sculpture of an apple tree, our family's orchard, complete with 2 small figures sitting beneath it. "It's us," he said proudly. My throat tightened as I smiled. When Aiden was 12, I enrolled him in a statewide art competition. His piece, titled Orchard Twilight, was breathtaking, a clay sculpture of a child sitting under an apple tree, reaching toward the light. It won first prize. Reporters took photos, and his story was printed in local papers. The headline read, "Knoxville Prodigy Brings Heart to Art." I didn't think much of it until my phone rang one evening. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice was unmistakable. "Ethan." It was my mother. Her tone trembled. I saw the paper. "That boy, he looks so much like." She stopped herself. "Who is he?" I hesitated before answering. "He's my son," I said quietly. There was a long pause. "Ethan, may I see him?" A week later, I drove to Brentwood for the first time in over a decade. The mansion looked smaller than I remembered, less like a fortress, more like a relic of a world that no longer mattered. My father opened the door. Time had not been kind to him. His once commanding presence had softened into weariness. My mother stood behind him, her eyes glassy with tears. When Aiden stepped forward shyly, my mother gasped. Her hands trembled as she reached out, but stopped short, afraid to scare him. "You have your mother's eyes," she whispered. Aiden smiled politely, unaware of the history between them. We sat together in the same dining room where our family had once lived in silence. The same chandelier still hung above, but the air felt different, fragile, uncertain. My father's eyes lingered on Aiden, full of questions he didn't dare ask. When Aiden went outside to play in the garden, I took out an envelope and placed it on the table. Inside were Sophia's medical papers, a birth record, and a photo of her holding her newborn son. My father picked up the picture with trembling hands. His voice cracked. "This is Sophia's child." "Yes," I said quietly. "Your grandson." He stared at me in disbelief, tears forming in his eyes. "But the clinic said." "I know what they said," I interrupted softly. "You told them to handle it." "But I found him. I found him by the stream, fighting to live." Silence fell. My mother began to cry, deep, broken sobs that shook her whole body. My father pressed a hand to his face, whispering words I thought I'd never hear. "I was wrong," he said hoarsely. "Dear God, I was so wrong." For the first time in my life, I saw my father not as the unshakable patriarch of the Caldwells, but as a man, flawed, frightened, and full of regret. My mother reached across the table, taking my hand. "Thank you for saving him," she whispered. "And for giving Sophia's love another chance." From that day forward, something began to heal. My parents withdrew from their social circles and focused on rebuilding the family they had almost destroyed. My father funded art programs for underprivileged children, while my mother reopened Sophia's old studio and spent her afternoons teaching Aiden how to sculpt. When I visited, I often found them laughing together. My mother covered in clay dust, Aiden proudly showing off his new creations, and my father sitting quietly in the corner, watching with tears in his eyes. For the first time, our family felt real, not perfect, not polished, but honest. One spring afternoon, I brought my camera to capture them in the orchard. My father was telling Aiden stories about his youth, my mother was shaping clay figures beside them, and sunlight streamed through the trees like golden threads. I pressed record, my heart full. It was the moment I'd waited for my entire life, the moment when love finally replaced silence. Years later, I wrote everything down, the truth of our family, the lies, the redemption. I called it The Orchard Promise. I didn't write it for revenge or pity, but for understanding. I wanted Aiden to know where he came from, and how love, real love, can survive even the darkest choices. When Aiden was old enough to read it, he closed the book and hugged me tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. "For saving me. For saving Mom. For saving all of us." I looked at him, his mother's spirit shining in his eyes, and realized something profound. We spend so much of our lives chasing perfection, titles, wealth, approval, forgetting that what truly matters are the quiet moments of kindness, the courage to forgive, and the grace to begin again. Now, whenever I visit Brentwood, the mansion no longer feels cold. My father plants apple trees every spring in Sophia's memory, and my mother's laughter echoes through the halls. Aiden's sculptures line the entryway, simple, beautiful reminders of what love can rebuild. Under the same orchard where Sophia and I once dreamed of freedom, I often sit with my parents and Aiden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold. My father tells stories, my mother smiles softly, and Aiden sketches in his notebook. I hold my camera, capturing every second, because I know now that these moments are everything.